Necessarily reflect those of the advertisers, owners, or management of Pacific Telestations LLC. For comments, opinions, and questions, please email Jess Lujan at jessthebuzz@gmail.com. The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. My guest this evening, of course, former Senator Brant McCreadie, who's now senior staff for Governor Eddie Bazacalva, who has designated you as the Homeland Security Advisor, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, hey, congratulations on that job.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So tell me the transition, again, coming from the 33rd Guam Legislature to Homeland Security Advisor. I know you were very proactive in regards to public safety when you were in the legislature and legislations that you crafted and became law in regards to supporting, the first responders. So this must have been a pretty easy mesh coming from the legislature to Homeland Security, yeah? Kind of, sort of?
Maybe not as easy as expected, but when you have the people around you that are professionals, they know the core mission of and the function of that department. It makes it easier. That's what I have when I was appointed by the governor, and I learned all the educated people down there. It made it easier. So I think the key component to being successful in anything you do, and the way I look at it, coming from bridging that bridge from the Senate to basically a cabinet position, is to not micromanage, to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing, and to implement when it's time. And that's what we continue to do. It's something that everyone knows their standing operating procedures, and we just when time comes, we go to work.
Now, being in the legislature, of course, the key things that the legislature does, of course, is the appropriation, purse strings, pretty much.
Most important thing.
Yeah, and they confirm the governor's, of course, appointees, and as well craft bills. One of the great challenges, as you know, being in the legislature, is finding funding. How is Homeland Security funded? Is there an offset from government side?
We're 100% federally funded through grants, and that's basically how we operate and how we generate our resources. We also have a fusion center that is comprised of different law enforcement partners that make up our fusion center. We are coming up with an identity and a mission statement. We'll have that by the end of the month. And so when you talk about funding, yes, 100% federally funded. We don't take anything from the general fund. That's why the Homeland Security Advisor does not require advice and consent from the legislature, which is basically a confirmation.
So when you talk about 100% federal funded, again, entity, does that include not just operations, but your manpower, salaries,
all resources? Part of the Homeland Security grant program, only 50% of your grant monies can go towards operations, and then the rest you can go towards supplies or whatever resources that you need to fulfill your job. So there's emergency management grants. So there's two components to the department, and the main thing is working together.
Sure. Now, let me ask in regards to this, because we have other federally funded agencies, 100%, like GURA is one of them as well. But is Homeland Security similar to a GURA, where they're 100% federally funded in the sense that they will be federally funded, or is there a phase out a time where Homeland Security says, hey, we're going to fund you for 10 years, and then from there we're going to start diminishing again the what we're paying for, and so in the 11th year we're going to be 90%, and then the year after that we're going to be 80%. Is there a phase out time in regards to the Homeland Security where federal funded will be?
I think it would be kind of premature to predict whether there's going to be a phase in or out. We just had a new president inaugurated, and ironically, one of the first two confirmations on Inauguration Day was the Homeland Security Advisor, General Kelly. So we have to wait and see what the new president decides to do. But obviously, border control is one of his main focuses.
Well, if we're listening and we're listening to what he's saying,
Yeah.
because we're not having to read between the lines.
Sure.
If we're listening to what he's saying, it's very important.
Sure.
It's going to be an agency that's going to be well funded. Hopefully that the territories are viewed again like the states are. That our borders, we don't have borders here, but we're definitely the tip of the spear, and we have our enemies right aiming at us right now.
So and hence the premature, because he may decide to increase.
Sure.
Rather than have an exit strategy. And so we stand ready. Like I said, the people at the department are seasoned, ready to go. And I know in the second part of your show, we'll be talking about more about some of the programs that are coming up and the exercises with Jenna. And so, yeah, we're ready.
Yeah. But let me ask you, let me go back to being in the 33rd Home Legislature, and prior to that, some of the bills that you had, you were very concerned about building out a prison.
Sure.
The overpopulation. Governor has again moved to commute some of that those sentences in order again to return these folks back to where they came from, pretty much their countries of origin, and in their commutation be able to cut the costs of incarceration here at DOC. Some of things were left again undecided at this point. What do you hope that the 34th do with bills such as that we're still in need of a new facility?
As far as the 34th Guam Legislature, I wish them the best of luck. Pray for them, because we have to root for our legislatures, because if they win, we win. And if they fail, we fail. I think it's something that we have to line up behind good policy, behind responsible policy, and behind something that moves the island forward together. And I think so when you talk about if that's going to happen with the 34th Guam Legislature, obviously you'd be on board, because it would be better for the island.
Sure.
But the caveat is, what's happening, what's going on, and how are we moving forward together. And so that's, I've always had that attitude when I worked in the legislature, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it really doesn't matter. It's working together, and what you do while you're in office that makes all the difference. And so that's how I've always operated, and I continue to do that. Having said that, I support our governor 100%. I've done it for 4 years, a little more than 4 years, and he's a good governor. He's good policy, he's smart, he has good cabinet, he has good law enforcement people backing him up, and that's who we have to work with. We have to continue to work with our cabinet members, with our governor, lieutenant governor, and move forward. And I think when you get that, I think it's better for the island. It's a win-win.
One of the things you tried to do, the legislature, is repeal pay raises for the senators, right?
Sure.
The senators. They even did that towards the end. Towards the end. Unfortunately, it was unsuccessful. It's rehashed again at this point. How successful do you think it's going to be?
Well, like I said, responsible policy and working together. I did something that I thought was right. It went through the process, and then it came short with the veto, which I was hoping that we didn't try and override the veto. We have some very good, keen, educated people working for our cabinet. We have, like I said, good governor and lieutenant governor. We have good senators. We have good mayors and vice mayors. Keep your pay, work for it. Work harder if you think you should work harder. But don't give somebody something and then take it back. And so that's the problem that I see. As you know, my stance has been consistent for 4 years on the pay raise and the legislative part of the pay raise. But you need to stay in your lane, and you need to do what's right. And if you look at the numbers on some of these issues, you got a chief of police, you got a fire chief, all these law enforcement heads, you got the governor and lieutenant governor, and they'll be making less than I think 60% of their staff, and those guys are on the hook when you talk about being responsible for the island's safety. That's a big job, and I think it deserves to be compensated as well.
Yeah, I tell you what, we're going to talk more about this, transitioning from the 33rd to Homeland Security, but I've got to take a quick break.